Hello. Today on This Old Haunted House, we're going to talk about the restoration of this house once owned by Zoltan Karnavash, also known as Karno the Magician. Right, Bob?
Actually, Bob, this is a review of Sierra's long-awaited horror game, Phantasmagoria. The Karnavash estate that you mentioned is fictional, the creation of Roberta Williams.
But surely, Bob, you have to admit that for being fictional, the house looks terrific.
However tempting it might be to talk about this impressive house, Bob, I think it's more important to warn people about this game. Phantasmagoria has been overdue for almost a year now, and it's worked eager gamers into a froth. They're bound to be disappointed by the final product.
Oh, come on. How could anyone be disappointed? Look at the high vaulted ceiling and the skylight. This house is just dripping with old-world charm.
Old-world charm or not, this game is supposed to be scary. That's the whole point of it. While there are a few spooky moments, it doesn't even come close to matching the hype.
Well, I'll make you a deal, Bob. I'll talk about the game with you if you talk about the house with me later.
Okay, Bob, I guess that's fair.
Who's the babe, Bob?
That's your main character, Adrienne Delaney. She's a novelist.
Get out of town. She's a Barbie doll.
You'd think that, wouldn't you? And playing the game wouldn't make you think otherwise. This is probably the vainest novelist on the face of the earth.
Vainer than Piers Anthony?
I said probably. She wanders through the house, swell-looking house that it is, checking her makeup and hair in every mirror she can find.
And one of the things that I noticed in the design is that there are a heck of a lot of mirrors around, Bob. They give a sense of larger space.
I said we'd talk about the house later, Bob.
So you're saying that Adrienne is not what you'd call a strong female character?
Yeah, I am, and that's really surprising, given that this game was designed by Roberta Williams, perhaps the most successful female game designer working today. Between Adrienne's primping and the zombie-like stance she takes between player commands, and the vacant stare she usually has even when she's doing something, she comes across as a brainless bimbo.
Bimbo's a pretty strong word, Bob.
I calls 'em like I sees 'em, Bob. And this particular bimbo hasn't got much fashion sense.
What's wrong with a cream-orange pullover and black jeans?
The fact that she wears it every day of the week the game takes place in. The thought of what that ensemble must have smelled like near the end was far more frightening than any demon possession.
Well, how are the other actors in the game?
Pretty sad. I know that most of Phantasmagoria was filmed before it was chic for celebrities like Christopher Walken to get involved in multimedia, but for the most elaborate PC game ever produced, they could have at least hired people with, I don't know, talent or something. The overall acting was right around the General Hospital level.
What about the husband character? What was wrong with him?
Nothing at first. As the considerate, loving man type, he was acceptable. Then he starts getting more and more abusive, and the acting gets less and less believable, until you get to day 7, where he's supposedly really gone over the edge. Ooh, that was scary. His version of maniacal laughter sounded like a Muppet Show outtake.
I understand that Phantasmagoria was directed by a genuine Hollywood movie man.
That's right. You might not find him in the director's index in the back of the Blockbuster Movie Guide, but Peter Maris was the man behind Viper, Diplomatic Immunity, and Hang Fire.
I've never seen a damn one of those movies, Bob.
Well, neither have I, Bob. But Phantasmagoria suffers from severe overkill in the camera angle department. Have you ever seen a shot from the point of view of a fireplace before?
Oh, that's not so unusual, Bob. Lots of directors have done that.
Okay. How about a bookcase?
I grant you, that's a tad weird.
But the problem is not those arty shots. Maris changes the angle so often and so drastically that it's hard to keep track of which direction you're going.
So, from what you're saying, I gather that this is not a very scary game?
The only scary thing about Phantasmagoria is that Sierra thought it was worth putting so much money into. I mean, this is the Waterworld of the computer game industry.
The main difference being that Waterworld was actually pretty good and this sank like a stone?
I couldn't have put it any better myself. But the most aggravating thing about Phantasmagoria... Oh, you're not going to believe me.
Nah, go ahead. I'd believe anything at this point.
It's too short.
You're right. I don't believe you. How can the 7-CD monster be too short?
All I'm saying is that I played the sucker through in 10 hours.
Now, wait a minute. Were you using the Hint Master skull guy down in the corner a lot?
A few times, but the only hints I got were things that told me which room of the house to go into. I didn't cheat on the puzzles that way. 10 hours.
But the hint book's so big. It's 188 pages long.
Let's break those pages down, shall we? The hints and tips take up 35 pages. Then they're repeated in a walkthrough section that takes 23 more pages. There's a list of everything else you can do in the game. That takes 9 pages. There's 2 pages of strategy, 2 pages of all the objects in the game, and 5 pages of maps.
But that's only 76 pages. What about the other 112?
There are also 66 pages of interviews with the people who acted in or helped produce the game, and 24 pages of completely unnecessary journal entries by Carnavash.
The original owner of the house?
Right. Then there's 5 pages of credits, and the rest are blank notes pages for the player.
Isn't this also supposed to be a particularly gory game?
Yeah, there's some kind of gruesome stuff. I don't really look on that as a selling point, but I know some people do.
Well, how about if we show some of the gross bits in rapid succession so the people who don't want to see them can close their eyes?
Good plan. Let's go.
Oh, my.
Oh. Ew. Oh, cripes. Ugh.
Quick, hold out your hands.
Whoa. Ugh. Oh, man. Okay, squeamish people, you can look now. A lot of those awful scenes take place in disc 7 out of 7. The rules change completely on that disc.
Is that where the chase scene starts with Adrienne running for her life?
That's right. It's the only part of the game where there's any danger of the character actually dying. Suddenly it goes from being a ridiculously easy adventure game to Dragon's Lair. You make a move during the action and hope you get the right video clip.
Hey, you can't save your game when you play this part.
That's right. Even if you've saved your game right at the end of Disc 6, you have to take things as they come on Disc 7.
Wasn't there another game recently where they disabled the save feature to make up for the fact that there wasn't enough gameplay?
Now let me think. Oh yeah, that was...
Baboos! Uh-oh, quick!
So you see, Bob, despite Sierra's best publicity efforts, there's just not a lot of good things you can say about Phantasmagoria.
Well, let's see if I can sum up, Bob. The acting is bad, the directing is bad, the story is hokey, the supposedly scary bits are cliched and laughable, and it only takes a less than determined weekend to get through the whole mess.
Yeah, that about sums it up. 7 CDs worth of bad and tacky. We can only hope that Gabriel Knight 2 isn't cut from the same mold.
Well, now that we're done talking about the game, let's take a good look at this old haunted house. Some of the topiary arrangements are...
Oh, gee, will you look at that. We're out of time.